So, Paul, we are so excited to have you here today. One of the reasons, selfishly, I think, is because we're currently writing Solopreneur Business for Dummies. So, we're writing a book. I know you are. You also just published a book that I can't wait to get to in a bit. But as we've been writing, one of the things I've been realizing after speaking with our community is that a big hangup is just purpose and drive and creating a business not to make millions and millions of dollars, but one that really fulfills them and makes them realize what they are meant to do and happy to do and to create a business around it. So you could not be coming at a more perfect time today. Welcome to the show.
It's great to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, well let's just dive right in because for these individuals, what common mistakes do you see people typically make when trying to find their life purpose and how can they combat it?
Yeah, I've seen a trend happen over probably the last 10 years or so. Might be a little bit longer. So there's two things that really come to mind. One is what we've always been told in conventional wisdom is to follow your passions. And if you discover what you're passionate about and pursue your passions and build your career, your business around your passions, well then basically, for want of a better word, you won't have to work another day in your life. That's as the old adage goes. But what you find is that passions are transient. So you'll be hugely enthusiastic about your passions, but they tend to be transient if you're operating with your passions on an ongoing basis. So that's one aspect. But another thing that kind of came to fore again over the last 10 years was to find your why. And people interpret it from the point of view of, well, if you find your why, well, that's going to give you meaning, purpose, fulfillment. And some people actually interpret it as being your purpose. But actually your why is slightly different. And I think the meaning that was taken from Find Your Why was more around, okay, how do you get a team of people in a company to get behind a purpose or a mission for a business itself? Your true, absolute true why. I prefer to use the word inspiration. I call it your genius inspiration. The word genius comes from gignere. It's a Latin word. And that is, genius to gignere, the actual meaning and the source or the origin of the word gignere is that inherent spirit that was present since birth. So everybody has as a natural genius. Inspiration comes from the origin of the word inspiration comes from inspirare, which is the breath that is blown within, which is divine guidance. So I prefer to use inspiration, and you can't alter inspiration. So inspiration are those moments where you've got that wow moment, you're overwhelmed with a sheer sense of joy, of just wow, of amazement. And everybody will have an emotional response to that in a good way. So it's not that they're crying for sadness; they're actually crying for joy or for wow or from amazement. Sorry. So inspiration is more to do with what we are actually being prompted to from our unconscious to actually pursue what our purpose is. So again, over the last number of decades, I've developed a methodology that actually finds an individual's life purpose. And it's different to conventional wisdom in terms of find your passions. Ikigai is another one. It's a Japanese concept, and people will recognize by intersecting circles. There's find your why, there's find your values. And again, each one of those will help to, I suppose, give you an element of happiness. However, it's not your true purpose. When it comes to solopreneurs, and the vast majority of my clients are solopreneurs in professional services, what I find is a lot of people will set up a business because they've either come in touch with something. Now that could be, say, a life coach, or it could be some methodology or some modality that they found that they had a really, really great experience from. And hence they're passionate about it and want to serve the world and want to bring their message or bring their treatment or whatever it might be that they found out into the world. And that comes from every single individual's desire to want to make a difference. So when you come to Solopreneur, they'll set up a business, but a vast majority of people don't know, well, how do we create a business? So how do we get more clients? How do we price our fees? How do we increase our fees, for one better word? How do we manage our time? Because typically as a solopreneur, it's just ourselves. And then what you find is after a couple of years, they get exhausted because they don't know how to develop that methodology in relation to get more clients and increase the business and getting a steady revenue stream. And now they fall back to being disgruntled, not fulfilled. They've lost their passion again. They've lost their mojo in a lot of cases. And they come back to searching, well, okay, so what should I do now? And that's the circle I see an awful lot of solopreneurs actually falling into.
It makes sense. It's like, they get burnt out and they can't then see a way out of making that passion work and try to find some new, and I don't want to call it a shiny object, but some new thing that, seems like it's less painful. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
and it is that.
definitely see that.
I refer to as shiny object syndrome. So
Okay.
it is that case where people find something new and they chase after that and say maybe that will make me happy, or maybe that will be the secret to what's actually going to make me happy again.
Mhm. Paul, I feel like Joe and I should just leave because I just want to hear you talk forever. I'm so intrigued. And I'm like, you know
Oh
what? You just
no.
take a night. You don't even need to be here. I just want to hear what you have to say. But you're referring to your methodology, which you refer to as the
Yeah.
genius code. So can you explain those core principles and how they can kind of facilitate personal mastery?
And can I add an angle to that too as you're going through it? Can you kind of compare and contrast a little bit with things like Find Your Why and Ikigai?
Yeah, absolutely can.
Cool.
So let me start off with, so the genius code. The first part of that is what I refer to as genius unlocked. Now, and I call it genius unlocked because it's unlocking the genius within an individual. And it's a methodology that will bring people through in order to find their true purpose and their true innate genius. So your innate genius is the genius that you were actually born with. So there's 4 elements that's contained within genius unlocked. There's your genius drivers, and your genius drivers is what gives you your joy, fulfillment, your zest for life, your mojo. It's what it literally increases. If I talk from a spiritual perspective, or from a um this, some people talk along these lines in terms of what's going to raise your vibration, what's going to raise your energy levels. That's what your genius drivers will actually bring to you. So it's your joy, it's your fulfillment, it's that sense of just is pure zest for life. So that's what I call your genius drivers. Then there's your genius quest. Now, the definition of quest is a long and arduous journey to find a solution to something, or to find something. Every single individual has a unique genius quest. It's been with them since birth and it continues throughout their whole life. And that's again contrary to what conventional wisdom, or some people will say, to in relation to life purpose, in terms of your purpose changes throughout your life. It doesn't. It never, ever, ever changes. It goes throughout your whole life, and it starts from literally when you're born. Most people are nudged by their unconscious. And what I found by working with so many clients over the years, what I found is that in around the ages of between 6, 7, and 8 is when their unconscious is really trying to implant on them what their genius quest is. But again, as we grow up in society and parents and all the kinds of things, we forget about that quest, and we don't pursue it. But our unconscious is constantly trying to bring us back to fulfill that quest, because it's a soul contract. It's a life contract. You have to fulfill that mission, for one better word. So your genius quest is your mission in life. It's your what. And what an awful lot of people, when they're trying to find what their purpose is, they're trying to find what they are specifically here to do. Then there's your genius role. Now, I've identified 10 different genius roles. So, for example, one of them is the parent. The other one is I'm a guide. And the other one is a leader. So there are 10 different genius roles. Now, a person will play one of those genius roles again throughout their whole life. It's what they naturally do. They don't even have to think about it. They don't have to go to school about it or college about it. They don't have to learn anything. They literally just naturally play one of those genius roles. Now, there's a shadow side and frustration point to each genius role, and that's what causes self-sabotage. But being a solopreneur, you're actually wearing a lot of different hats. So you're delivering to clients, you're doing your operations, you're doing your marketing, you're doing your finances, you're doing everything. So you're wearing different hats throughout being a solopreneur. But once you identify what your genius role is, now you structure your business around your genius role. So that's your genius role. That's how you're best to fulfill your mission. And then there's your genius inspirations, what I referred to earlier on, which again comes from the origin of the word is inspirare. And people will have that, again, that response. You can create it. Your conscious mind can create it. It's unconsciously created. It's divine given. So, but your inspiration is always directly linked to your genius quest, always. And all the genius elements work so perfectly with everything else, as in your genius role, your genius drivers, your genius quest, your genius inspiration. They're all hand in hand with each other. That's how perfect the universe is. It's literally nothing's ever missing. Everybody has everything within them that they need in order to actually fulfill what their purpose is. Now, so that's what I call genius unlocked. And then
Can I ask you a
genius,
favor before we go on? Because it's a lot. This
it's
is
a
a
lot.
lot, and it's good. It's great. I love it, but it's a lot. Can you give like an example, like just a person either that you've coached or just a made up example of
Yeah.
somebody in each of these characteristics and how they fit together? That would really help me.
Yeah. So let's say the genius role is being the parent. Okay. Now, the parent, I've called it the parent because stereotypically, like a parent, they actually operate quite similar. But in the business format, it works from the point of view of the parent wants to bring the family together. They want to bring a group of people together. So the parent will naturally be drawn towards wanting to have social gatherings, want to build a community, for example, online or face to face. That's what they want to do, and they want everybody working together well within the actual community or within the environment, within the company that they're working within, or whatever it be. That's the natural thing
Okay.
for the actual parent. However, the shadow side and frustration point is they look after everybody else's needs first. So they're the ones that are always last to be fed. So they're always last to be sat down at the table while all their, their partner, their spouse is being handed their meal, their kids are being handed a meal, and they're always the last one to be sitting down at the table. So they'll actually look after their own needs last. So what's really, really important for the parental role, meaning that the parent, the genius role as a parent, is self-care. Everybody needs self-care, but the parent genius role absolutely needs more self-care. So that's really how that might kind of manifest in real life.
Did you just make me get teary-eyed? Because that I resonated so well with me. I was like, yeah, you're right. I do need more self-care. I'm the parent role.
Yeah. If I take mine is the guide. So being a guide is all I want to do is bring people from A to Z as quickly as possible. That's what the guide wants to do. And they want to advise them, they want to help them, they want to encourage them, that's what the guide does. But however, on the flip side of the guide is they feel that they're not good enough. They feel that they need to have no more information, more knowledge or whatever in order to be able to answer the questions for clients or other people. So that's the shadow side of the guide. So every genius role has its own downside as well as positive side.
Cool. So we got the genius role of parent. You said parent. So,
Yeah.
but now we've got three other components here that can you tie them all together just so I can get a whole picture of a person before we go
Perfect.
on
Perfect.
to the
Yeah.
beyond the genius
Okay.
unlock?
Let me go through mine because that's probably the easiest example.
Okay.
So my genius drivers are experiencing, advising, and learning. Okay, so let that sink for a minute.
Okay.
So experiencing, advising, and learning. So when I'm advising, just like I'm doing on this podcast in terms of I'm answering questions, I absolutely love it. It's what literally boosts my energy. And I always get more energy, even I'm a higher energy at the end of a podcast interview or any other type of interview, or when I'm having client meetings and advising a client's meeting, I'm always at a higher energy than I am at the beginning of the end of the sessions. Experiencing is so the English language is so limited that we only have a certain number of words to describe certain things. But the definition that an individual will have to their genius drivers is absolutely unique to them. So experiencing for other people could be anything. All right. It could be experiencing a glass of red wine. It could be experiencing a walk in nature. For me, if you probably look at my background, I have a lot of aircraft on my background. For me, experiencing is really an experience that not many people will do. Like there's a tiny percentage of the population in the globe that will actually do the kind of experiences I do. So for example, my last experience that I did was I got strapped to the top of a biplane. I was brought up to 4,000 feet in the air and we did aerobatics in the air. Not many people are going to do that. So that's my type of experiencing.
Yeah, I'm out. I am out. More than six steps on a ladder, and I'm calling a professional. So,
but that for me, that's what gives me joy, gives me the zest, it gives me it's what I absolutely love to do. So they're my genius drivers. When it comes to my genius quest, so it's going to go a little bit deep now, okay? So just a warning and just kind of a bit of an initial setup on this one. Since the age of 10, I've been asking myself the question, what would keep me here on this life? Because bottom line is, I just did not want to be in this life. I wanted out, even at the age of 10. So it's not that I grew up in an abusive childhood, and it's nothing like that whatsoever, but I just couldn't, I'm an empath naturally, and I'm highly intuitive on another side as well. So growing up in an environment, I literally every single day I was just thinking, I don't want to be here. So I would look at every single way of how I could check out of life. But equally, on the flip side of that, I was looking, okay, so what would actually make me stay? So my quest is actually about what would actually make me stay. So that's where it put me on the quest in order to discover and find out what does an individual's life purpose is. What would actually make them want to stay here in this life? Hence the reason why all the different elements to the life purpose. And I'd have people that would come to me that would be either have contemplated checking out, have planned it, have attempted it, and so on. And once they discover what their life purpose is, now it gives them what they're here to do. And once they start living their life in line with that, now it starts to dissolve those thoughts of suicide ideation, for example. Okay, so
Wow.
that's my quest. So my mission, for want of a better word, is to try and put people on the right path. That's my mission. That's what I do every single day. It's what I advise doing in relation to my the podcast interviews, my business that I do, as well as growing and developing business from that perspective. As in, once you find your purpose, now it's building a business, because the bottom line is the ripple effect of that is huge. So if a person is designing their business around what their purpose is and developing and growing that, the impact that they have on individuals is massive. So I'm kind of leveraging, for want of a better word, on trying to get as many people on their life purpose as possible, because for them to do their work then is huge. So that's in real life from my perspective. Now, all the other people that I would have worked with to discover the life purpose wouldn't be as, wouldn't be, for want of a better word, as dark as that, but it will be very specific to that individual, and therefore the work and the intention that they need to have within their business, even if they're a life coach or a consultant, or it makes no difference what they are. But when they have the intention of the impact that they want to make in the world for the individuals, that's completely aligned with what their purpose is, what their soul contract is. Now things start to change. Now they're in flow. Now they're into achieving the level of success that they absolutely desire. And that's where the genius code then comes into play in relation to how they can make that an awful lot easier and reach the level of success that they want.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for sharing all of that.
But I'm sorry. There's one more. There were 4, right?
That's what I was going to try back.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, sorry. Thanks, Joe. So the genius inspiration for me. So when I observe and see something where somebody has been recognized for the difference they've made, I'm like a little baby. Okay, I literally bawl out and cries. So that for me is the inspiration. Now, if you look at it and the two of them are joined, whereby I'm observing something whereby somebody has reached their full potential, and they're getting recognized for the potential that they've actually achieved, and I'm bawling like a baby observing that. And so when I see clients, it's I need a box of Kleenex. Let's put it that way. Okay, that is directly connected with my quest. From the point of view is my quest is here in relation to getting people on the right track. When people fulfill their mission and reach their full potential, that's when they've achieved. So your inspiration is directly linked to your mission, always directly linked. And that's how the two of them work together. So that when I see that, when it could be in a movie, it could be in an event, it could be the clients that I'm working with, that for me is giving me the unconscious nudge, because that's how everything to do with your life purpose is unconsciously given. So the universe is constantly trying to nudge you in order to fulfill your purpose. So every single time I observe that, that's the unconscious saying, yes, that's what you're meant to do, which you need to know your quest in order to understand that part of the inspiration. Does that make sense, Joe?
It does. It does. It helps so much. Thank you.
What happens though if people just cannot figure out their quest? If they're just like so stuck, where, like, how do they, how would they approach it?
Yeah, they can't. I've never failed on discovering what an individual's quest is, or all the other matters for that for all the other elements for that matter. So the way I devised the methodology. So first of all, I mentioned earlier on, I'm an empath. I'm intuitive. I was born the seventh son. I was seventh of the seventh. Here in Ireland, there's a huge amount of folklore between the seventh son. What I was able to do for clients was give them all the information that they needed in order to know what their life purpose was. I wanted to find out that same information for myself, because I could never find, so hence the reason why I've tried all the other things to try and find out, okay, so what is my purpose? And I couldn't, it never gave me the answers that I was seeking. And that will be common for pretty much every single client that I've come across and anybody that's gone through my course to discover what their life purpose is. They'll always come out and say that the level of clarity and certainty that they get is huge, and it deeply resonates with them. So the methodology is based on finding the evidence in a person's life in order to, I call it a bit like the fairy tale or the fable Hansel and Gretel, whereby you find the breadcrumbs. So when you look back and you find the breadcrumbs, that's the evidence in your life that your unconscious has been guiding you in order to fulfill your purpose. So just as much as I said, when an individual responds in an emotional way to something that they observe or see or hear, that's their unconscious trying to suggest to them that this is something that they should pursue. Now, I'm not talking about, for example, watching a movie and watching a tearjerker movie, because that's created. I'm talking about something that's nobody else around them is having an emotional response, but they themselves are having an emotional response. That's their unconscious trying to nudge them to say, here's what you're meant to do. Okay. So what I do in all the questions that are in the methodology, I pull out those breadcrumbs, I pull out that information, that evidence in a person's life. And when we bring it all together, now they can actually see all those different elements, your role, your drivers, your quest and your inspiration. And now it's in the book form. So I developed the course to try and reach as many people as I possibly could to bring them through the methodology. And then that was such a huge success that I then turned it into a book, again, try and reach more people globally to try and bring them through the methodology.
So cool. Can you give an example of a solopreneur that you've helped? And you don't have to use their name or anything, but just kind of their story of being kind of lost and directionless, and now they run a successful one-person business.
Yeah, there's a few that flood in my mind every single time I think of this. There, I'll go through one of them first of all. One of them was a couple. They're married. They're but when they came to me, their relationship wasn't great. Okay, and the husband had already planned and attempted to check out. So when they came to me, they were in a pretty much desperate space. All right, but I worked with them in order to again outline for them. But and again, it can be very very quick. So again, for somebody to say that's wants to discover their life purpose in the way that I teach it, they could do it literally within a half a day. That's how quick it is. It's not you're not journaling or meditating up the top of a mountain. It's nothing like that whatsoever. So by me working with them, they were able to define. I did it for both, and then I aligned both their purposes together and how they each served each other. Because let me put it this way: the universe is so perfect, nothing is ever missing, and it's so perfect. So what I mean by that is when you get a husband and wife, they generally be mirrors to each other, but they don't really know that. So the things that they'll see, so for example, let's just take a husband and wife, okay? The things that they will get annoyed about, that the husband will get annoyed about, saying the wife, are things that they have within themselves, but they haven't owned. So the wife is there as being a mirror to the husband. Equally, the husband is there to be the mirror to the wife. So in order for, and again, so the universe brings these people together in order to get into a relationship, to learn from each other, to develop, to evolve, and to grow spiritually. So so to cut a long story short, that's part of the work I was doing with them in order to develop such a partnership, for one better word, together, that literally because when you bring those energies together, that's phenomenal. Cut a long story short, because I outlined for them in relation to what their mission is, what they're to do. Now, okay, could you say they're solopreneurs in their own right, in terms of they come together, but what I said to both of them was, you need to do one aspect of the work and your wife needs to do another different aspect of the work, of the work, but you can still work together serving the same clients, if that makes sense. All right. Cut long story short, they are literally traveling the world and their business is going phenomenally well. So it depends on your definition of success. Some people, it's money. And I've got loads of clients that literally probably, if I was to gauge it, they probably quadruple, on average, they probably quadruple their income within the space of 2 years. So that's from a financial perspective. Because again, as a business consultant, the second book that I came out with was specifically for solopreneurs and people in professional services was how to get more clients, more fees, more time. So when you merge the methodologies and how to grow a business with your being aligned with your purpose. Now you're as we say in Ireland, you're sucking diesel. You're really in the flow at that stage. So again, it depends on the level of success. Income wise, people would have quadrupled their incomes, increased their fees significantly in terms of the charge, because the Genius Code is all about building confidence and being aligned with your true self, and being in flow when you're with that, and you're able to master your emotions. Now everything becomes an awful lot easier. So now if you build your self-worth and your confidence, well, now your what you would charge will be an awful lot higher than somebody else, for example. If it comes to relationships, again, the Genius Code is all really about, if you think of it this way, the way I probably best describe for clients is, imagine a grandfather clock. And if you're familiar with the grandfather clock, where you got that pendulum and the pendulum swings from left to right. Every single individual has what I call the genius pendulum. And that genius pendulum operates on an individual level, but also on a global level. So you'll see it in politics, you'll see it in countries, you'll see countries going from war to peace, you'll see it in politics going from Democratic to Republican and so on. But also on a micro level with an individual, each one has a genius pendulum. And every single time we get triggered by something, or we have a reaction to something, our genius pendulum is being swung either left or right. But the universe has to bring us back into equilibrium. And when we're in equilibrium, now that's when we're in flow, what people refer to as bliss or love, or just sheer gratitude for everything. That's when you're in equilibrium. And now that's where everything starts to flow. So when it comes to, people use the word manifesting in your life. Now, when you're in equilibrium, you're manifesting pretty much what it is that you want more quickly than you would when you're out of equilibrium. And people wonder why they can't manifest. The reason being is that they're out of equilibrium. People that I've worked with that's part of the work that we're working on, in relation to remove and dissolve as many of those triggers as possible. So therefore, they don't have fear in their life. They have confidence, but it's a confidence not from a cockiness perspective. It's just a surety that they have. And so they know who they are. They're completely authentic to themselves, and they're just going through life as they are meant to be. And that's literally what we achieve.
That's amazing. And Joe, I just think this ties in so well, because our whole business is around creating a business that serves your life. And so everything you're saying, I'm like, I like this guy. Well, Paul, I feel like we could talk forever. I'm so curious though. We always ask our guest what their favorite quote is, but you have a mantra, and it seems very fitting that you have a mantra over a quote. I don't know why, but I'm like, that makes sense. So what is the mantra that you would like to share?
Yeah, it's just a simple mantra, and I just call it fail fast, and it's people will be familiar with it, but it's to fail fast and learn from your failures, because it's about trying everything. A lot of people get hung up about, everything has to be a success, and then when it fails or doesn't have the outcome of what people expect, now they start to go inward and say, how did I fail? What did I do wrong? And so now they're self-deprecating themselves. Whereas if you had the mantra from point of view of just fail fast, just try something, and if it works, brilliant. Then now you move on to the next step. And if it doesn't work, well then, okay, just move on again. Just find the next thing and move forward. But you got to learn from your failures. It's not about wallowing in your failures. Absolutely not, because there's always a learning from every single failure that you come across.
100%.
Love it. Well, Paul, we've teased your book. Where can people find it, and where can people find out more about you?
Sure. My website is probably the easiest, which is davisbusinessconsultants.com.
DAVIS?
DAVIS, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. The Welsh version is IES, but yeah, those Davis, DAVIS businessconsultants.com. And on that is all my resources, all my books. My books are all available on Amazon anyway. And yeah, so my latest book is Genius Unlocked. My first book was Evolve. My second book was How to Get More Clients, More Fees, More Time. And I'm currently writing a fourth book. So, but if you want to keep in touch, you can sign up to the newsletter I'll let people know. So just go to the website, davisbusinessconsultants.com.
You have my respect. Writing half a book, because Carly's writing the other half. That's been a journey all by itself. So deep respect.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Well, Paul, thank you so much for coming on the show. I just think so many listeners will get so much from this. And just thank you so much for what you do. I think it's
Thank
really
you.
important. And listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. You know the drill. Please leave that 5-star review, subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, and we will see you next time on The Aspiring Solopreneur.
And I'm going to jump in here because I've been wanting to do this for a while. Really, really, really write that 5-star review. Please, we need those. We need them to get this podcast out. We need for more people to hear it. And by doing that, you will help make that happen and help more people. So do your part. We're working hard here for you, and leave that review. Thank you.